So why is podcasting so powerful for brands? Well, effectively, it comes down to the fact that the listening audience is mega valuable. Podcast listeners tend to be ABC1 demographic. Now, this is done by something called a socio-demographic profile. You don't need to understand all the sort of the clever bits behind the scenes, but effectively, when people look at audiences, they break them down into different categories. And podcasting is listened to by predominantly ABC1 demographics. So these people tend to be more highly educated, they're affluent, and they have a disposable income. So for businesses, for brands, for marketeers, for branding agencies, for PR experts, whoever it may be, they generally try to get to this ABC1 demographic because, as I say, they are more affluent and they have got that disposable income to pay for services. The other reason why it's massively beneficial for brands is it's the fact it's a male biased audience. Now, I mentioned it a minute ago, it's almost a polar opposite of traditional mediums like TV and radio, which has a slightly more female focused demographic. So you can actually reach affluent people, ABC1 demographic, and they tend to be more male based rather than female. It's only slight and it depends on country to country, by the way. And it's only slightly more male, but again, it could be massively beneficial if you're predominantly having to advertise or market via mediums that are traditionally got a female demographic, but you've got a strong male bias with your brand. Podcasting could be the way for you to go forwards. It's also got 37% of the people who listen to a podcast fall into that 15 to 34 age bracket. And again, as I mentioned a minute ago, getting to that younger audience has traditionally been really difficult for the majority of mediums like TV and radio, because as soon as you start to get mainstream adoption, the youth market goes elsewhere. Whereas with podcasting, the youth market is going through the roof as well. As I mentioned a minute ago, it's almost the opposite of the strong existing media, such as radio. But there's also a powerful multiplier effect. So, for example, 37% of people have discovered a radio show via a podcast. Interesting. And also, 48% of people have listened to a show via YouTube. Now, podcasting is an extremely powerful call to action medium. And by call to action, what do I mean? Well, you can actually tell your listeners to do something and they will go and do it. There was a survey in 2019 and 56% of the people who were surveyed said that they had clicked the link in the show notes when instructed to do so by a podcast host. 56% in 2020, when I'm recording this video right now, having a 56% click-through rate on anything is absolutely phenomenal. So it just again goes to show the power of podcasting. So why else is podcasting so powerful for brands? Well, effectively, it's a proactively niche audience. Now, there is podcasts for anything. You can find podcasts about sport, about finance, about health and fitness, about family, about social life, about science, about fitness, about history, about crime, whatever it may be. Those are the mainline categories. But there's also super niche. So, for example, if you wanted to know, I bet there's a knitting podcast. I haven't checked, but I bet there'll be a knitting podcast. I bet there'll be like a fingerless crochet podcast. There's probably an underwater polo podcast, because that's how niche it is, because the demographic means that people want to make content that really reaches that niche demographic of audience listener. It's an engaged audience. So these people want the content, as we mentioned a minute ago. So strong socio-demographic audience is ABC1, and they're content hungry. We looked in a video a minute ago that in the United States, for example, if people say they are a podcast listener, they will generally listen to 7 pieces of content a week. So you can literally reach your ideal audience every single day of the week. And it's also a massively growing audience as well. Just in terms of the UK statistics we looked at a minute ago, September 2018, 6 million listeners. Fast forward 1 year, 7.1 million listeners, 24%, nearly a quarter increase in just one single year. So again, it really begs the question, why are you not already doing a podcast? Because the audience is there, they want the content, they're hungry for the content, and they're a valuable audience as well.